Birdie, you also know a little bit about the NFL, my friend. And for that, I'm
Just a little.
gonna hand it over to my co-host,
Yeah.
Jon Ritchie, and let him ask a few poignant, intellectual, yet fun questions.
Yeah, there you
John,
go.
you know, if you ask about like a point spread, I turn into a pillar of salt.
Yeah, you're not allowed to talk about it. Nobody. For the
I don't even
purposes of
understand
this,
that
For the purposes of this interview, nobody gambles on the NFL.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
yeah.
Right.
No, I read an interesting column by you where you were saying Terrelle Pryor is going to save Al Davis's reputation, and I just wanted to talk about that a little bit.
What a hack!
No,
I love Al Davis.
so do I. Hey, the man was just an icon, and he meant a lot to me. And
He paid you.
Well, he did pay me, but he was great to me.
Paid you for 5 years.
Yeah, of course. But I think that
He was so great to me.
I don't think that I want to hear, but I don't think that there's as a matter of fact, I know there is not an owner in sports, American sports, any kind of sports, in any sport, who had a greater effect on popular culture than Al Davis.
Yep.
And that whole idea of just win, baby, that's as American as the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
He was always true to his guys. He always stuck
think,
with you
yeah,
as a player. You could do no wrong as a player.
Right. Unless he got a bug under his, like Marcus.
Oh, right.
I don't know what that was about, but there was something there.
What about that? Because I tell you, I just saw a special.
I don't know.
I think it was a 30 for 30 or some documentary on Marcus Allen. And when they go into that in detail, I think Marcus Allen banged the broad that Al Davis liked.
That's the theory.
Is that the theory? Because I'm telling you,
that is the operative theory that I heard. I have no idea if it's true. It's probably scandalous for me to say it, but it doesn't make any sense.
Well,
because he goes at him like a man that's mad for no other reason than that. Like he's just makes no sense. Where's it from?
If you were Al's guy,
shut up and ask John. What do you think?
If you were Al's guy, you had it good, and you knew you always had to be careful about what you said. But he kind of ran the show. Like he would come out to practice every Thursday, and he would pull guys aside, and some guys he would coach up, and it would drive some of the assistants crazy because he's telling them different stuff than they're learning from their position coach.
Right.
But some guys he'd pull you aside and want to talk about other things, and with me, he always wanted to talk. He'd always want to talk about literature with me because he was an English major at Syracuse, and he knew that I was an English major, and he wanted to talk about Herman Melville with me. And then,
are you kidding me?
On occasion, he'd want to talk about.
Hey, about Moby Dick.
Yeah, he loved
John,
Billy Budd.
My theory, and I wanted to write like a 1,200-page biography of Al Davis. I wanted to write Al Davis, like he was LBJ, like one of those Robert Caro books.
Oh, you should.
Yeah, but I couldn't get the price I needed, especially at the time in my life, which we shall not go into right now. My daughter's in the next room. But
okay. No, he was a fascinating man.
He always struck me. Listen, he was a child of the Depression, World War II era, and I could see this kid reading the accounts of the war in Europe, and I could see him fascinated by it. And I may be completely full of it, but all of those blitzkrieg concepts and lightning strikes, and he was consumed with that vertical game for years.
Right.
I could see this child of New York, like a Jewish kid in Brooklyn, reading the newspaper accounts, and putting that onto football later. And he invented that franchise.
Absolutely.
But anyway, Terrelle Pryor, just quickly, we know about the lean years, and I think that as is human nature, the unfortunate side of human nature, people started to get tough with Al Davis only when he got old and then he died.
Yeah. Yeah.
Until then, they were scared of him. They wouldn't mess with him.
Everyone was, yes, absolutely.
Right. But then when like the typical jackals that we all are, once a guy becomes vulnerable and you kind of sniff it out, then you make your move.
Right.
But we know about all the terrible draft picks, And there was a sense, there was a sense by the time that he passed away that the game had passed him by.
Right.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Well, he took risks, and early,
but that was his
at
nature.
the end, he was taking risks that didn't pan out.
Right. And I don't think that he was the only guy who would have taken a bad risk for a high price on Jamarcus Russell, as much of a schmuck Jamarcus Russell turned out to be.
Jamarcus Russell.
But the last pick he made in the supplemental draft is Terrelle Pryor. And I find that to be, it has at least the possibility for poetics. I really believe that in a certain way he could be the ultimate Raider, in that he's Al's last draft pick, and he was taken off the scrap heap.
Right, redemption time.
Nobody wanted him. And I will say this, you've seen the kid. I hadn't seen the kid in person until I did this piece over the weekend. And, you stand next to him, and to me, he's like a superhero. He's huge, with the silver cleats and all the other nonsense.
Yeah.
But I do think that at some level, Al anticipated the next generation of quarterbacks, because this kid was a number one recruit in the country.
Yeah.
Before anyone heard of Colin Kaepernick, before anyone heard of Andrew Luck, before anyone heard of RG3, before anyone heard of Russell Wilson, this guy was the stuff.
Yeah.
He was the number one. He was
he's from
MVP
Pennsylvania.
Bowl.
Everyone was talking about him. He was the biggest deal in high school football, ready to be the biggest star of college football. And he was for a while.
And I think, but one thing I asked him about, and he wasn't comfortable with it, and I told him, I got to ask you this. I thought it was BS that, he gets jammed up for a tattoo or a car or whatever it is, money. First of all, you're asking a whole class of kid across the nation to play below their market value.
Yeah.
So that, Dick Vitale or whoever else can get rich and whatever, the networks can get rich. But you got to take your money under the table.
Yeah.
What I really didn't like was the Johnny Manziel thing is resolved
2 quarters
in about a half an hour before the season, because sit out a couple quarters and they'll be done. And his thing went on for months.
Mm-hmm.
And it really did. It stigmatized him. I'm not saying he was a good kid or a saint or this. I do think he's grown up and he has worked his ass off. That much I know, so I'm rooting for him.
Yeah,
I hope the Raiders have a quarterback, because even if you hate the Raiders, you have to admit that the league is a better place when they're worth hating, when they're good.
Sure.
Yeah, right. Like the Yankees in that sense. We got to wrap it up, Mark. I know you got to go anyway, but thank you